wishing you all a happy Mother's Day. On behalf of Namita Gokhale, William Dalrymple, and all my colleagues at Teamwork Arts, welcome back to JLF's Brave New World. Those of you who missed our earlier sessions, including The Future Has Arrived with Marcus du Sautoy and yours virally, Pranay Lal in conversation with Pratik Kanjilal, as well as the other outstanding sessions with Margaret Atwood, Piku Iyer, Siddharth Mukherjee, Peter Carey, Jhumpa Lahiri, James Mallison, Shubha Mudgal, and so many others. You may catch these on our Facebook page, JLF Litfest, or on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF. To tell you more about the stellar list of writers we have lined up for you, please welcome Festival Directors Namita Gokhale and William Dalrymple.
We are all of us so absolutely delighted by the enthusiastic response from around the world to our stellar new series, JLF, Brave New World. We look at the new life that all of us have to begin, the journey ahead, the learnings, the unlearnings through these sessions on books, on ideas, on mechanisms to cope with and to understand how things are turning around after the pandemic. I urge all of you to listen in to us, to engage with us, to send your suggestions, and to join the Brave New World.
Hi there, we've put together an incredible literary festival for you online, JLF Brave New World. All the writers we love most at Jaipur, Peter Frankopan, Jhumpa Lahiri, Margaret Atwood, have been joined by a whole galaxy of stars we've never dreamt of actually getting to the festival. People like Peter Carey, Evan Duval, Alain de Botton. It's an incredible lineup. Orhan Pamuk, Neil Gaiman, I mean really, it just goes on and on and on. Come and join us, Brave New World, every Wednesday, Saturday and Sunday evening on a phone or laptop near you.
Thank you, Namita. Thank you, William. Our official radio partner is Red FM, Bajate Raho. Our first session today on JLF's Brave New World is Orhan Pamuk, the Museum of Innocence, in conversation with Chandrahas Choudhury. Nobel laureate Orhan Pamuk talks to Chandrahas Choudhury about his life and work. Orhan Pamuk is a novelist, screenwriter, academic, and recipient of the 2006 Nobel Prize in Literature. One of Turkey's most prominent novelists, his work has sold over 13 million books in 63 languages, making him the country's best-selling writer. Pamuk is the author of novels including Silent House, The White Castle, The Black Book, The New Life, My Name is Red, Snow, The Museum of Innocence, A Strangeness in My Mind, and The Red-Haired Woman. He's the Robert Yik Fong Tam Professor in the Humanities at Columbia University, where he teaches writing and comparative literature. He was elected to the American Philosophical Society in 2018. The European Writers' Parliament came about as a result of a joint proposal by Pamuk and Jose Saramago. Chandrahas Choudhury is the author of Days of My China Dragon, Clouds, and Arzi the Dwarf. Last year, his novel Arzi the Dwarf was published in Odia by Sindhubala Choudhury as Bamana Arzi. Please do comment and ask questions by typing it in the comment section, and also do follow our handles, JLF Litfest on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get notified on the upcoming sessions. In case any of you drop off, and I'm sure many of you will due to bandwidth issues, or in the event that we drop off, we promise to be back, or you can find us on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF, or of course on Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored and privileged to present Orhan Pamuk, the Museum of Innocence, in conversation with Chandrahas Choudhury.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're tuning in from around the world, it's a great honor for me to bring to you about 45 minutes of chat with not only one of the greatest living novelists in the world, but one of the greatest writers in the history of the novel. Orhan, it's great to see you again. It's been many years, and it seems like we meet about once a decade. But looking at you now, I'm reminded of the time that I met you for the first time. And of course, most of us, when we meet a writer for the first time, we don't meet them in person, we meet them in the form of their books. And I remember as clear as it was yesterday. I was 23. I just graduated from university, and I was living with my mother in Bombay and trying to work out what to do next with my life. I remember going to a little old bookshop, the Strand bookshop, which is now sadly shut down, and finding there the vintage paperback edition of your book, My Name is Red. Till then, I never heard of you. And I opened it, and I remember the first sentence still very clearly. I am nothing but a corpse now, a body at the bottom of a well. And I thought, well, that's very odd. I mean, I'm a literature graduate, yet I've never come across a novel where a dead man speaks. And then as you turn the pages of the book, you find that so many other people so many other objects that you never thought would speak, they do speak. A coin speaks, a dog speaks. And to me, this was a huge explosion in my head, and a way of thinking completely afresh, even after a solid literary education, about what you could do with novels to make it a form of story of social history. And the reason I want to bring it up is one, of course, because my experience is echoed by millions of your readers around the world who would also, if they were allowed to speak right now, would talk about their first memories of reading you, but also to bring to you what I think is the major focus and what is so special about your work, which is that in reading you, we feel that the writer is telling us that fiction is at once the most profound lens that we can bring to bear on the reading of life, but it's also a game. It's a form of play. It's a kind of acknowledgement of make-believe. And you hold these two kinds of moods in a very beautiful equipoise in your work.
Thank you. I don't know what to say after all this. Yeah, I am also moved by the fact that you randomly found my book in a secondhand bookshop, and then it's not the subject of what I'm telling you. It's not the subject of the story or the themes of the story, but technique of the story.
Yes.
What Henry James would have said, seeing the story. When Henry James was writing letters to friends, I want to write this story, then who will see the story? Who would narrate the story? We can divide a book into what is told, the story, and who sees, who narrates it. Perhaps a lot of originality or new things that I did in my fiction depends on who is telling the story. I thought about this a lot. And also, after William Faulkner point of view, telling stories from different point of views, this was developed, especially after James Joyce in 1920s and 30s. I learned so much from, okay, there's a beautiful story, but who's telling this story? And who's telling this story, if you think about this a lot, turns out to be part of the story. And I like that. And this is perhaps why I was called, and I still believe I'm partly a postmodern, telling the story, also thinking about telling the story. So I want to write a story about painters in early 17th century, late 16th century Istanbul. I not only tell this story, but I want to tell it from the point of view of something living there rather than a fatherly voice is telling, because it's historical, it's too far away. I wanted the presence of now, and you can only do it in first person singular. I also did this, I had this same anxiety. Wow, I'm talking about distant places, distant place, distant culture, things that I studied. In order to own it, why don't I force myself to give voice to these things that I studied from distance? But I want to be that color, that object, that person. In fact, I write these novels because I partly want to belong to this world of that I, in a scholarly way or in a naive way, research, read books about, dream about. But I also, in My Name is Red, in all my novels, pick up these subjects because I find them dramatical to represent the problems of my world, the dramas of my world. But I want to make it personal. So I imitate a color, a dead body, and try to make it work, you know. And there's just the other day I was thinking there's a film called Toy Story. A children is playing with toys. I have that sentiment. So and I can make a toy speak. I can make a color speak. I was like that in my childhood too. So there's also very heartfelt, personal thing in developing that technique of making everything in the story speak. Not only the characters are speaking, but also sometimes objects are speaking, and seeing the story. We are seeing this. The main story goes on, but we see the story from different angles. I like that. I like thinking about how you're telling the story is important, as important as the story. But as I get older, it is getting less important. Now that you said this, in my youth, I was more focused on technique. Well, Chandrahas is right. I have to go back to technique more. I said just now, thank you.
Well, listening to you, I'm thinking in a time like ours, which I don't know if you've seen it in your, not seen it before in your life. I certainly haven't. There's certainly a sense in a time of a global pandemic that what is the meaning and value of something like literature, which has no power? What is the meaning and value of literature in a time when literature has no power to solve the most pressing problems of the world? It's strange that not only readers, sometimes even writers find themselves asking it and say, why do I write? How can I write? Why do I need to write in a time like this? Isn't there something else I should do? But in a way, perhaps it's a time like this that clarifies exactly what literature can bring to our lives, which is, among many other things, the power either to control time or to be in a universe where you're being guided by somebody who can make all sorts of other time scales come alive, and in that way give you a kind of deep immersion in a time which is different from the time in which you are trapped.
First of all, we have to look at two things.
Yes.
First, I am not that utilitarian. Say there is a revolution, there is an earthquake, there is a pandemic, there is a grave political situation, people are suffering, and they say, well, what's the rules of use of literature? I don't say that. I am modest about use of literature. Just because literature cannot be that influential in a pandemic, in a revolution, in a very important, it doesn't mean it's nothing. We have to, if you have a realistic point of literature, it means a lot to me, I can express, then I'm not very much distressed. Yes, something grave happened for us, for writers. The public sphere where we can exist, partly destroyed. Festivals, bookshops, I don't know the situation in India, but every place, the bookshops are closed.
Yes.
And then in my part of the world, selling books through internet doesn't work too much. So suddenly, I am powerless in that sense, but no, I'm planning to publish my novel, maybe in September, or plan this, plan that. It's not that bad, but it is bad because it hints you as powerless. If you're young, you want to go out, meet others, do things, festivals, fight with others. That space is destroyed. You have to postpone your dreams in that sense. Literature as something fighting, publishing in a magazine, seeing friends is a little bit changing. But in the end, literature is two things: changing the world, expressing, doing things to social things. Then there's also literature as I am angry or nervous. Oh, here's a paper I'm writing. I am also putting this in a journal, in a novel. This I am self-expressing. No one can stop me from self-expressing. I'm writing. In fact, this is a very productive period of my time. I'm home all the time, and I'm also like in a prison, very disciplined, waking up at the same time, working. So it's very bad. We can criticize the governments, whoever, but on the other hand, just don't be that pessimist because you will destroy yourself. The future will be fine. People will be young and read our books. It's not that bad. Now it's good time to write. That's how I look.
I've always felt in reading your books, every close reader of a novelist feels that they have a secret hotline into the mind of the writer. And sometimes it's completely imaginary, but it's still very real at a personal level. And I've always felt in your case that the idea of beauty is very important to you. And I also know this because I know that you started as being a painter, and it's not only that the visual field is very clearly defined even in your writing, but also there is a great shapeliness and musicality to your prose. And I want to ask you to open out this idea a little bit. What does beauty mean for you in literature? And do human beings have a need for have a very urgent need for beauty? Can they do without it?
Talking about an abstract beauty is a very right-wing and an old-fashioned thing to do. I was raised, or I wanted to be a painter till the age of 22. Oh God, how many times I said this? So baby beauty is related to me with visuality. I consider myself a more painterly writer because I describe things and I like describing things. And the more so it's part of my sensibility. But I cannot go and say, and how beautiful the purpose of literature is beauty of flowers and butterflies. In fact, they are beautiful. I'm not saying everything is political, but partly because I kept this idea of I have to pay a lot of attention to make my writing and my world beautiful, because the previous generation of Turkish leftist writers were so utilitarian, so only concerned about political effect, and I was a bit critical of them. And some of them were really good, very talented, and wasted their talents because they wanted to serve their cause, their country, for politics. And that's part of me. And at the beginning, now I am considered, especially internationally, a very political writer in Turkey too, unfortunately. But at the beginning, these old writers from previous generations were all saying, "Oh, Pamuk, beautiful bourgeois, blah blah blah" to me. So it's very interesting that I find myself in a political position. Thank you for reminding your readers that in my youth I was more beautiful and I was not a political person. But if you're a Turk, in the end, that's where you end up, and if you're an Indian, that's where you end up too.
Your work is still no less beautiful. And actually, now that we're on the subject of beauty, I'm going to bring up one of the most precious possessions in my library, and it's the one book that you published this decade, A Stranger's in My Mind. And I always wait for your books to come out, and I go run out and buy them as quickly as I can. And what struck me about this book, and since we are talking about technique, I would like to ask you about this since I get the chance. There's very interesting narrative technique in this book, which is that it starts out as third person, although third person very closely tied to the point of view of the protagonist, Mevlut, the seller of yogurt drinks. But as it goes forward, you suddenly have little splashes of first-person narration from the other characters. And in fact, right on the first page of the book, we are told that this is a book told from different points of view, between a portrait of life in Istanbul between 1969 and 2012 from many different points of view. And I found this mingling extremely delightful, and it's a kind of a freedom which you start thinking, why did it occur to me to write like this? It's one of those things that are not at all self-evident, but once you see it, it seems to feel as if this is a very natural way of writing. And what brought you to this method? Because if I'm right, it's not part of your earlier books, which are more rigorous on one side or the other.
It's a yes. Chandrahas, thank you very much for bringing this up. But now that I'm a professor, I will simplify it for the general public audience. More or less what you said is this. This novel, A Stranger's in My Mind, I'm also, with your advice, showing the readers the Turkish cover, is a novel where, when you read it, some parts of it, the characters are saying, I did this, I did that, I did this, I ate this, I went this, and suddenly, and the novelist is telling, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, and you follow, and it all works. And it's surprising that no one thought of this before. Yes, I am also surprised no one had. But there are so many little technical problems which I solved with experience, such as if you're writing, he did this, he did that, suddenly he begins to talk. Who is talking here? So you have to write the name as William Faulkner did. Okay, he's talking. So I want to go back to Orhan or the novelist. Then how do I show that he's speaking? Where does the other speaking starts and Orhan say? So you have to show with also some different thing that and some little thing. But in the end, I wrote a novel which works with he did this, he did that. Then the guy who did this, he did that. It's not I'm saying he taught this, he taught that. He's thinking, and it's also whole page or half a page, and you understand. Yes, and I'm so proud of to be praised because of my technique. Thank you so much, Chandrahas. This is one thing. The second thing is I did that because I actually wanted to write this novel in a more, he did this, he did that. The whole novel was going to be worked. But this was a novel about street food and and making the poor people of Istanbul. And I am, I don't come from that hard culture. But I did so much research, I'm proud to say. I did interviews of the book took me 6 years to write. Interviews, I had assistants. So when I was writing, sometimes I was listening to these interviews, reading them there also. Then I read. Then I was stealing away these conversations or getting that language. But that language, which has the vitality of daily life in Istanbul, did not fit. He said this, he said that. And I said, why don't I let them talk as they talk?
Yes.
And it works. But now it's a bit abstract because we are not part of the book. Maybe I read from the book, as you asked.
Yes, please do. So what I wanted also for readers to, I want you to read, but also to, today we are speaking in English to each other, and most of our audience is Anglophone. But you write in Turkish, and I suppose, I don't imagine it's a matter of regret for you, but of course, people sort of read you in a sound that often I thought it would be nice to hear both the sound of you in translation. Yes.
This only happens when I go to Germany, where there are now 4 million Turks, and some of them Turks also come to my German events, and they say, Turks don't go to that kind of events, but they come to me. So there are Turks read it in Turkish. But I know from experience that after 2 sentences, the foreign language is so boring for the other, for another. Turks love it, but other people will not be happy after. Maybe I'll read the beginning of, if you have a beginning of Strangers in My Mind. Now here, it broadly tells, maybe I'll read one sentence in English, then I'll also read one sentence in the same sentence in Turkish. Also, don't forget that I only check English because I think I know some English.
Yes.
This is the story of the life and daydreams of Mevlut Karataş, a seller of boza and yoğurt. Born in 1957 on the western edge of Asia in a poor village overlooking a hazy lake in central Anatolia, he came to Istanbul at the age of 12, living there in the capital of the world for the rest of his life. I love this sentence. It's also well translated. And Turkish, my God, I probably rewrite the first sentence of every novel 1 million times. This is rewritten 1 million times. In Turkish, the same words in Turkish. Yaşındayken köyden bir kız kaçırdığı tuhaf bir şey oldu. So forth and so on. In Turkish, destabilize the technicality. I am happy and very happy that I have read this partly in Turkish.
Great. One of the things I've always loved about your work is its intensity, and one of the ways of generating that intensity is your habit of writing catalogs in single sentences, lists of different things, brand names, things that people do, things that people see. And I found especially moving in A Strangers in My Mind, the bit where Mevlut's father dies and he goes back. It's been 2 days since his father is dead, and this is what the book says. In that empty room, he found that unique scent he had never smelled anywhere else. The smell of his father, of Mevlut's own body, of breath, dust, the stove, 20 years worth of soup dinners, dirty laundry, old furniture, the smell of their very lives. And in a way, this, I think, in writing these kinds of catalogs, they speak to a hunger when you're an artist of somehow trying to encapsulate the whole world into a frame, isn't it?
Partly, but also I am now as a writer thinking that writerly observation works if you write about something that everyone knows but no one talks about. That we know each of our friends and our house has a smell. Even our houses has different rooms, has some smells. And why this happened, we never think. Then we enter Ahmed's house or Suleiman's house, and it smells like that. You don't even talk about that. But now, then you may leave your house and come back to your house after some time, and you discover that you are also one of those people. You have also a smell that you forget. But what is that smell made of? Your life in 20 years. So I have this idea. Now I have the list. I love lists. But the problem with it's hard to dramatize them. And as you said, it feels as if I make the list, but it's also, I try to make it partly dramatical. But yes, in the end, lists are there to imply the richness of life, the complexity of life, but also we want to see these titles which make them rich or different. Yes, I like that. I do that a lot.
One of the things I love very much about your work, when I read The Museum of Innocence, it felt like it was the work of a writer who has fallen in love for the first time, but you were in your 50s at the time. I very much doubt that was the case with you. And in A Strangeness in My Mind, it felt very persuasively like a story told from the point of view of a class which I know is not your class. And again, I envied you your ability to leave your body, your imagination, to look at life from another point of view.
But believe me, Chandrahas, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, you know. It's not I am talented and I do it and it works. No.
No, I wasn't at all suggesting that.
Yes.
And is there a time in a writing of a book, every book, where sometimes it seems I can't do this, it can't be done? What is the place of doubt and confidence in a novelist's life? Do you have to generate a new kind of confidence for each book?
Yes, I say that many times and change plans. Say, I am writing a novel. I plan this. I say, let's talk about a novel that is already written so that you can visualize a strangeness in my mind. So I thought, Mevlut should do this, Mevlut should do that. I also tell this from this point of view and also this. I do this once, it doesn't work. But I continue with the novel. 1 year later, I came back to the same place. I again write this, it doesn't. And then at some times pass, it doesn't work again. Then I drop that. Then I drop that idea out. Then I don't push myself. Then I said, this part cannot work. This idea does not work. I'm not going to damage my novel with something that doesn't work. I tested it, it doesn't work. But at the beginning, you cannot see that it won't work. Yeah. Creativity is putting problems and testing yourself, and you have to be a good judge of yourself. You have to have time to be able to say, this doesn't work. Most of us, unfortunately, say, I work so much, why don't I publish it?
Can you remember the day when your first book came out? What did it feel like?
Yeah, I exactly know my name because someone called. It's in the window. It's published.
It's very nice, isn't it?
Yes, it's in the window of the publisher. Uh-huh. I was exactly 30 years old. I worked so much to get it published. I was happy. That was Cevdet Bey and his sons. The only novel of mine that is not published in English. Knopf had already had a contract with it. Sony Mehta liked it. That late Sony Mehta liked it very much. He bought it. He was then Knopf would publish it after a Nights of
Temporarily, Chandrahas, but
I'm
can you hear
sorry.
me?
It's back.
Yes, I'm sorry for the interruption. I was talking about the novel I'm trying to finish.
Chandrahas?
Nights of.
Yes, go on.
I was trying to talk about the novel I'm trying to finish now in Istanbul, Nights of Plague, which is coincidentally about a pandemic, the third plague pandemic that happened between 1897 and early 1910s. I work so much about Muslims and quarantina and this and problems of imposition of quarantina, which is very similar to imposition of modernity. This was my idea. Imposition of a Muslim doctor imposing quarantina is like Kemal Atatürk imposing modernity, something like that. So this was the idea for 30 years. Suddenly I'm finishing this novel, this happened. I don't know. I'm upset a bit.
I'm sure when you go around the world, readers come up to you everywhere and say, Mr. Pamuk, my favorite novels of yours are this, this, and this. And I'm wondering if they arrange themselves into certain clusters and whether you can even tell something about the reader through them.
Very good question, because I always also proud to tell this. I am not a novelist known for, most of novelists are like that, like Nabokov, it's Lolita. Marcel Proust, it's one big novel. There are novels like Umberto Eco, the name of the Rose. So so there are big novels with some novels. For me, my each novel, a different novel popular in different country. For example, A Strangeness in My Mind is one of my most popular novels in Turkey. And the reason my publisher said this even before publication, because this is the novel you are most Turkish, meaning lower class life, and that's how it is. I think I agree with you. My name is Red, probably. Also, there are a certain group of readers, intellectual readers, who adore Black Book. This is my cult novel, but their attitude is, it's someone else. The young Pamuk wrote it. The new Pamuk cannot write it. Cannot, it's not me. As if they like that guy who wrote it. Maybe. So in Turkey, it's different. In America, it is snow because of perhaps political reasons. But in England, it's My Name is Red, which is very popular. In China, it's My Name is Red. In Spain and Latin America, somehow it's Istanbul is very popular. So I have 2-3 books which are most popular in different countries, and I am happy about that. I don't know which of my books are better, but My Name is Red, Museum of Innocence, Snow, Black Book. These are the novels that are most prominent that people read. Did I forget anything, Chandras?
No, you went over most of them. I think my favorite novels of yours are My Name is Red, The Museum of Innocence, and A Strangeness in My Mind. What does that say about me?
Okay. You respect my work. I think these novels are the combination where my creativity and what I would say scholarly research kind of thing successfully came together. That They are not only technically innovative, but then I also gave a lot of time to represent one part of the culture. And I'm doing the same with this plague novel. There is Nights of Plague, and sometimes telling my friends, next novel, I won't do anything scholarly. I'll write a novel only about what I've seen in my life. Museum of Innocence is a bit like that, but I will do more and write a novel only based on things that I know, things about I know, something like that. But anyway, I'm more busy now finishing Nights of Plague.
I began with speaking about coming across My Name is Red because we have so many good questions from the audience. But I began with finding that copy of your book. And for every reader, their own copy of a particular book is unique. And I had it with me. I marked it up for so many years. And when we first met in person at JLF in 2011, I brought it with me. And I remember asking you when I met you first, do you want to read? And you said you didn't have any English editions of your book. So I brought mine to it. And I looked at that video recently, and right at the end, I can see you putting it down after having read from it. And I must tell you, I never saw that copy ever again. Mr. Pamuk, you've stolen one of my Pamuks.
Yes, I felt
where is it?
I will give you a copy with some pictures in it. I'll do some pictures and present it to you.
I thought I wouldn't let this discussion go without extracting my pound of flesh.
Thank you.
We are now going to go to some questions, and
yes,
some people even wrote to me in the day today asking, sending me questions to ask you, and I'm going to begin with one of those. It's from the Nepalese writer Buddhi Sagar, who said, again, he said his most favorite novel of yours is Snow, and he's a poet, and he said the poems that Carr writes in Snow are very beautiful, and if they're written by you, did you have some poet in mind when you were writing them?
Good question. Yes. In fact, a living Turkish poet who at that time was a good friend, and I also was my radical postmodernist years, wanted to use his name. Although he was not exiled in Germany, he was exiled in London. But anyway, it didn't work. Yes, partly I thought of him, but not of his poetry. For a while, there were one or two persons said, I wrote the poems the character in the book could have written and sent them to me. Yes, I always think of a second work of art or work of literature as I do my work. Say the poems in Snow are like the real Museum of Innocence. You know, that's the text. The book is a commentary to those poems. Museum of Innocence is commentary to those objects. This kind of thing. Yes, I am not a poet. In the end, I sometimes say this. I am not poetically talented. And God, like every Turkish boy, between 18 and 21, I wrote poetry. I'm not talented, although I was successful. So I ask myself this question. God does not whisper to me. And what would he whisper to me if you choose me? Then I begin to think. I tell this story, and I thought about what would he tell me, whisper me? I don't know, but I imagined that thing, and I wrote that imagination. These are my novels. My novels are that imagination. What would he have said to me? I'm fantasizing, and these are my novels.
Anurag Kushava asks, the Museum of Innocence as a story is like a map plotted with characters who grow and at a pace that feels human and not forced. How do you write in such an intricate manner, and do you plan the story in your head?
I plan the story in my head, but what you said, very sensitive question. The flow of time in fiction is such a sensitive question and subject. I only know Nabokov was interested in it. He said Tolstoy in a way discovered the flow of time in his fictional characters. You write something and then you have the plot and the next thing can stop. But no, I want to talk about nothing now so that the reader will understand that flow of time. And what that thing is, maybe some landscape, something, or some irrelevant thing that you behave as if important, so that that the flow of time, the reader will take some time, importance of the new chapter and new subject or whatever, not chapter, chapter finishing and starting is already that. Really very, and the reader feels that, and you cannot plan that. You see, in fact, one day I'll write soon an article called "How to Write a Novel," and, and and let's think about a novel like a grown-up tree, hundreds of leaves, branches. You cannot imagine everything from the beginning. So you think of the novel, imagine it as you do it. You did the leaves, you did it. And this flow of time is such a nuanced, sensitive thing. You can only manage it when you are finishing the novel, when you're sensing it. Yes, these are very interesting subjects. Yes.
Someone asked, was it easier to write your books after you had finished the first one? But was that the most? Was it easier to write your books once the first one had come out?
Good question, because in the sense that I finished my first novel, in fact, won a prize, but couldn't get it published in Turkey. I worked for 8 years before getting published in Turkey. But this is not related to about Turkey. That happens to all starting writers. In the beginning, it's always hard to get published. But I was also very ambitious, determined, it was assured, had a self-confidence. So I was sure that it's not my mistake if they don't publish my first. That's what I thought.
A question from Sangeeta Datta. Mr. Pamuk, please tell us about the role of sensory memory in your writings.
What is sensory memory? Oh, sensual, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, it is. In fact, the commonplace observations are important if you have a keen eye or dictionary in your mind about your sensory experiences. Here is a cup. So your character will do this, but you have to do something unique to yourself. How this feels. So many authors wrote this. He lit a cigarette. You have to make the guy lit a cigarette in such a way that you would be original. Very hard.
Yes.
So you have to, but the only thing you may have is your own experience, your sensations, your acknowledgement, your understanding of your sensations.
Someone asked, it's an interesting question. Do Easterners get your concept of Huzun more than Westerners?
Well, look, East, West, yes, there are differences. Because I'm a Turk, I'm busy with this, but I don't make my generalizations too strong. Second, I belong writing novels. I have, say, 5,000 readers in Argentina, 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever readers in Korea. I have readers, people who like novels. They are not East or West. They are very similar. In India, in Argentina, in the United States, in Turkey, they are dedicated good literature followers. They are very similar. They know that word. They had written also other novelists like me. They know that language. They are now stripped of their Eastness, Westness, this or this. Now we developed a new plateau, the new word, a new place where we share our experience through literature. And internet and communication through internet made this also, new developments in the last 20 years made this possible. Now my readers are literary readers. So they understand. Also, literature is not there for understanding everything,
Someone asked, Mr. Pamuk, do you read Indian authors, and who have you read recently?
Let's skip this subject. I like and follow Amitav Ghosh, Kiran Desai, Salman Rushdie, all these writers. I respect and read them a lot. I follow Indian literature as much as I can. And also I follow it because that world is similar to my world. And I want to see how that world is represented. So these are Arundhati Roy is another writer who is chose to live in India. I also It's very important. So of course, Indian literature is because of English, it's also more popular over the world. It's more accessible to me. I read all these writers, continue and respecting them and reading them.
Someone else asks, what kind of literature will define these times for the future?
Let's not make big generalizations, but it's bad times, but our love of literature continues, and literature will reflect about these times. One thing I thought that there were also plagues, pandemics before. Humanity did not write too much about that. There are 2 or 3 main plague novels. One of Daniel Defoe's A Journal of the Plague Year. The other is Albert Camus' novel Plague. And the other one is I just recently wrote about Manzoni's, Italian writer Manzoni's The Betrothed. But they are the most, everyone knows about these novels. They are the most important pandemic plague novels, but they are all written by people who did not experience this. They are historical novels, or they are people just like Albert Camus researched doctors who were in Hong Kong. There were French hospitals there. There was no plague in Algeria, and he didn't experience it. So was Daniel Defoe. That is a historical novel. So was Manzoni. That was also a historical novel. So strangely, people who experienced plagues and pandemics could not form a fully developed novel. But don't forget, art of the novel was only discovered 170 years ago in 1850s by Dickens, Balzac, that generation. Only that, only 170 years. And a pandemic happens only in 3 times, that big pandemic doesn't happen that frequently. So it's partly that. And then the art was not invented. Also, if you live that, can you write a novel afterwards or something like that? Do you want to express yourself through that? Also, that because it's so horrific that you want to say, okay, that was strange. I don't want to test my life with that. I want to continue and forget it. I thought people forget it. I think that people will also want to, the next generations, even ourselves, will want to forget these bad days. Sometimes I'm thinking that. Sometimes when I'm trying to finish this novel, Orhan, they won't like this, your novel, because they won't want to remember. Because what I'm experiencing now, I'm infiltrating to this novel that I'm writing in the last 3 years. And I'm also asking my friends, do I do it? What do you think? This kind of thing. And I'm also busy trying to finish my novel.
I think this will be the last question, unless you have a very short answer, which I hope you don't. Someone is asking about the place of love in your work.
Wow, I have a lot, because I have Museum of Innocence is self-consciously wants to be a novel of love. At the back cover, which I control, it says a novel of love. But when you say love, most of the time people want to hear flowery, nice music, happiness, sweet things, flowers, sugars. My love is like traffic accident. It happens to us. It's not in our control. It hurts us. Yes. It's important. Why don't we try to understand it instead of sugarizing it, making it sweet? It is perhaps sweet, but sometimes it's not. It's both sweet and destructive. There is a lot of love in my novels. Maybe Museum of Innocence. Some, yes, are more political. Museum of Innocence. Read Museum of Innocence if you're interested in love in my novels.
Okay. Well, wonderful, sir. This has been an amazing Sunday evening chat, and I'm sure this is what everyone else feels. So at this point, I'm going to say bye to you.
Thank you so much. I was also very impressed. You made me talkative because you approach my novels through technique, because you're also a novelist, of course. Thank you so much, Chandrahas. Thank you so much.
I save up questions for 10 years and then we get to meet. So that's great.
Okay. Thank you so much. No, we'll meet sooner. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Orhan Pamuk. Thank you, Chandrahas Choudhury, for that absolutely riveting conversation. I'm sorry for those people who had to just fall off because of bandwidth issues. I hope you'll return and see it on the Facebook chat. Thank you all for watching and being such a great audience. We thank our official radio partner, Red FM, Bajate Raho. Please do remember to tune in at 9 p.m. for our next session, The Consolation of the Past, the Future, the Promise of the Future. A fascinating conversation with trailblazing novelist Chitra Banerjee Devakurni and multifaceted writer, poet, and radiologist Amit Majmudar. Two prominent Indian American authors speak of their writing practice and the inspiration they've drawn from myth and memory to understand and articulate the present and the future. For those of you who are willing to stay logged on, we have a special extract, as always, from the Jaipur Music Stage archives. Sauramoni is an eminently known as an international Bhatiyali performer from West Bengal, India. Moni stunned the audiences when he performed at the MTV Coke Studio Season 1 in 2011. He has since performed in various festivals in India and abroad, including Celtic Connection, Scotland, Alchemy Festival in London, Lok Sangeet Sammelan in Delhi, Shrewsbury Folk Festival in Shropshire, UK, the National Folk Festival in Kerala, and the La Orientalas Festival in France. Moni is the collector of rare folk songs, is a vocal archivist and a researcher of unexplored folk genres of Bengal. Here's presenting an extract from the Jaipur Music Stage. Remember, come back on at 9 p.m.
দিলাম ছাড়িও গুরু তোমারি নামে দেহ তরি দিলাম ছাড়িও গুরু তোমারি নামে ওই এবারে আমি যদি ডুবে মরি আর কলঙ্ক তোমার নামে তোমারি নামে দেহ তরি দিলাম ছাড়িও তোমারি নামে বাজারিরা বাজার করে ওরে কত রঙের বাতি জ্বলে গুরু মোকামের সামনে ও তারা জ্বালাইয়ে বাতি করে কাতিও ও তারা জ্বালাইয়ে বাতি করে কাতিও সদর মোকামে তোমারি নামে দেহ তরি দিলাম ছাড়িও গুরু তোমারি নামে আমার ভাঙা নাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে অকুল দলিনার মাঝে আমার ভাঙা নাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে থাইকা পাছায় গেলে আগার থাইকা পাছায় গেলে গলুই যাবে খোয়ারে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও রে অকুল তরি মাঝে আমার ভাঙা নাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও দীক্ষা শিক্ষা না হইতে আগে করছ বিয়া দীক্ষা শিক্ষা না হইতে আগে করছ বিয়া তুমি বিনে খতে গোলাম হইলে বিনে খতে গোলাম হইলে কাঠের টাকা দিয়া রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও রে অকুল তো দিন মাঝে আমার ভাঙা নাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে বিদেশে বিপাকে যারো বেটা মারা যায় বিদেশে বিপাকে যারো বেটা মারা যায় পাড়া পড়ছে না জানিয়ে পাড়া পড়ছে না জানিয়ে জানে তারো মায়রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও রে অকুল তরি মাঝে আমার ভাঙা নাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও রে অকুল তরি মাঝে আমার ভাঙা নাও রে মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও রে ও মাঝি পায়া যাও And now I am in the last portion of Bengal, southern Bengal. It's boat rowing only. Chorus, chorus, chorus. I need some chorus. Hey yo re, hey yo. Ready? Hey yo re, hey yo. 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 Chamal 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 lore samle tori bahiyo. Chamal 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 lore samle tori bahiyo. Hey yo re, hey yo. 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 বেলা গেল সন্ধ্যা হইল কালো মেঘে গগন ছাইল হই বেলা গেল সন্ধ্যা হইল কালো মেঘে গগন ছাইল ওই দেখ থাইকা থাইকা গর্জে দেওয়া তীরের পানে ধাই থাইকা থাইকা গর্জে দেওয়া তীরের পানে ধাই হেই রে হেই হেই রে হেই হেই রে হেই হেই রে হেই নাইকা সইয়া নাইকা সানি ছড়া ছড়া উঠে পানি হেই নাইকা সইয়া নাইকা সানি ছড়া ছড়া উঠে পানি তুমি সাবধানে ধরিও হাল কিনার বাইয়া যাই সাবধানে ধরিও হাল কিনার বাইয়া যাই হেই রে হেই হেই রে হেই হেই রে হেই হেই রে হেই লাহোর সাইরে ভাইরে ফুলে নাই রে দিশা গগন নামিয়া গেছে নদীতে যে মিশা লাহোর সাইরে ভাইরে ফুলে নাই রে দিশা গগন নামিয়া গেছে নদীতে যে মিশা নাইকা আমার সঙ্গী সাথী দুই কুলে মোর কালো রাতি নাইকা আমার সঙ্গী সাথী দুই কুলে মোর কালো রাতি ওই দেখ ছেঁড়া বাদাম হালমা নে না সাবধানে নবাই ছেঁড়া বাদাম হালমা নে না সাবধানে